Lakeland Currents is sponsored by Nisswa Tax Service. Nisswa Tax Service offers tax preparation for individuals and businesses. Across from City Hall in Nisswa and on the web at nisswatax.com.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Lakeland Currents, where we're living through one of the longest winters I think that we've ever experienced. It's not certainly the coldest. We haven't had that 40, 50 below, but it's certainly been a long winter. And my guest today spends time in the winter outdoors. And the title of our show today is Looking at Nature from the Outside. And Bill Marchel is my guest today, and he's a person who I've admired for a long time. It's the first opportunity we've had to ever meet and work together. I've admired his work as a photographer and his work as an author. He writes regularly for the Minneapolis Star Tribune and for the Brainerd Dispatch, and you might see his articles in the Outdoor News and other publications around the state too. Welcome to the show, Bill.
Thanks, Ray.
It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
And the thing that I think is amazing to me is that the time that you spend to get your photos, and we're going to talk about your photos a little bit later, but as a person who does non-captive work, is that the term I'm looking for?
Correct. Yep.
You get your animals in the wild, and we have had other photographers on who have talked about going into penned-in areas and getting wolves or deer, and you do it the old-fashioned way. You go out and you earn it, don't you?
Well, I don't know if it's the old-fashioned way or if I earn it any more than anybody else does, but it's the passion of mine. And so, being in nature is when your subjects are non-captive, it's different. Basically what I'm doing is hunting with the camera, and I wouldn't hunt behind a fence, so I'm not going to hunt with my camera behind a fence.
Right.
And I take pride in getting to know my subjects and getting to know placing myself in a situation where I can get a good photograph rather than just going in a pen and have your subject just be there.
Well, you're one of a unique group of people because you are a freelancer in a sense, and
Correct.
that you don't just work for the Minneapolis Star Tribune or the Brainerd Dispatch, but you submit your articles to these organizations. And before we get into that, what's your background? How did you get started in doing this kind of work? And I know you live in the Brainerd area. And just give us a little bit about your background, how you got started in this.
Yep. Well, I grew up in North Brainerd, and we were only a block and a half from the Mississippi River, and it was great that there's that floodplain down there. People are familiar with Brainerd, just between the paper mill and what we call the Dairy Queen Bridge, the Washington Street Bridge, and it's all wild down there, and nobody has built because it is a floodplain, and we grew up BB guns and slingshots and bows and arrows and fishing rods up and down the Mississippi, and all within walking distance of our houses. So that's where I think I developed my love for the outdoors and love of nature, and always wanting to learn and wanting to know what was going on. And so it was a natural progression to want to, so to speak, hunt all year. And in 1981, I bought my first camera. It was during the winter, and some friends of mine had gone to Florida, and it was kind of a boring long winter, and I thought, hey, if I bought a camera, I can hunt all year long. And so I bought a camera. I remember taking out a loan, and my hand was shaking as I was signing the loan, which was $1,300.
Which was a lot of money back then.
Yeah, my vehicle was worth about $300 back then. And so it started there, and growing up, I subscribed to Field and Stream when I was 8 years old. So I was always looking at books and magazines. I had an Audubon bird book that was all tattered and worn from looking at it and studying. And so going into photography, I sort of knew what a good image was and what wasn't. And when I bought the first camera, I remember I literally unpackaged it, learned a few things, and went out photographing deer. And that very first day out, I got some acceptable deer images, and things just progressed from there. I gradually built equipment, and of course back then we shot slides, and versus digital now. And I built my slide files, and my client list, and eventually I went to part-time work and have part-time photography and part-time regular job. And then I realized I was making more money working at home, so I went to full-time freelance about 18 years ago.
Wow. And boy, that's amazing to me, because if people haven't ever done that, where you don't have that regular check coming in, that's a big step out into the goo if you've not ever tried to do something like that. And to have done that now for 18 years is a compliment to your technical skills.
Thank you. But yeah, it is scary. It's something I haven't quite got over even.
I'll bet.
You
Because
know,
anytime something could hapen to you, and then that career's over.
exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, editors come and go, and you know, when you make a good sale one day, and the next day you find out this editor that you had a good rapport with is now gone, and you have to start all over. And you know, one fallacy about outdoor photography or wildlife photography is people just kind of assume that you go out and photograph nature and then get a paycheck. You know, I don't get paid. No, it isn't. I don't get paid to take photos. I get paid to sell photos. And so the taking part costs money, the equipment, the computers, you know, everything that you need, your vehicle, you know, everything, all costs money. So the rewards, you just don't go snap checks in the mail, you know. There's a lot of computer work. I believe about 85% of my time now is office time versus 15%
Really?
in the field. Yeah.
Wow.
And that just keeps getting worse and worse as, you know, new software comes out. You have to have it. You have to learn it. You know, everything is email now or FTP or whatever, you know. And so all those things have to be learned. It's a constant learning process. Where back in the slide days, it was great. You took slides, editor contacted you, you packaged up your slides and you sent them in. There wasn't all this computer work and filing and captioning digitally and all this, and then learning software. My gosh, like Photoshop is just a huge
That's a complex software.
Oh man, and I don't even hardly use it. I just know very little parts of it, just enough that I need to know. But then they upgrade, and you have to buy the upgrade,
Right.
and you know, it goes on and on and on. So.
For people who may not have heard of you across the state, if they have seen the license plate, the Minnesota, what do they call that series?
The critical
habitat license plates. Thank you.
Yep.
And you see the big buck. It's about a 10 or 12 point buck.
Big 10-pointer.
That's one of your images, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one, and I really cherished that image. I can remember it like it happened yesterday. It was about 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, and it was late during the rut. It was like 18th of November, and the peak of the rut I always figure is about the 8th or 10th of November, but so it was a little bit late in the rut. And I came out to this meadow, and I just thought, boy, this is a good place to rattle. And I rattled, and kind of half-heartedly, and think, you know, and all of a sudden over this rise, I see this set of antlers coming, and it's just like, oh my gosh, you know. I mean, if you look at that license plate closely and really analyze that deer's antlers, he's a well, I hate the word trophy, but he's a real trophy animal. And then, as always, deer that come into rattling, if they have a chance to circle downwind, they will. And he came over the hill, you know, knows something's going on, probably can hear the shutter of the camera, and then starts to glance downwind. And once he hit my wind, he took off. So I got the shot that I needed for that license plate. And if you look, his neck is real big. He's a big body deer. He's just a real monarch.
No, were you in a competition to get that onto the plate?
Sort of. They decided the DNR decided to do 5 plates. They upgraded the loon plate, which had been out already. There was already a deer plate, which was a painting. They wanted to upgrade that, and then they wanted a songbird, and then the lady slipper, our state flower, and what's the 5th one? Anglers.
2 guys in
the boat.
Fishing.
Yeah.
And do you do national magazines? Do you put?
Yes. Yep.
You do that too. So you submit your, and I know you write a lot of articles in addition to the photography.
Yeah.
So do you get that? Do people tell you would like an article on a wolf or a deer or something?
Yeah, more for in the photography end. Like I've had covered Audubon and National Wildlife, which are two highly
very prestigious magazines.
Yeah, Ducks Unlimited. Outdoor Life, Field and Stream, those kind of types of magazines. Deer and Deer Hunting magazine is a good client of mine for a couple reasons. I like to photograph deer from not just a hunting standpoint, but from a biological standpoint. And the magazine Deer and Deer Hunting is that type of magazine. They have articles about deer biology plus articles about hunting deer, and so they've been a good client of mine. Yeah, just about every hook and bullet and nature publication at one time I've had images or articles or both.
And you have published a book, I'll hold it up here. It's called Birds in Our Backyard, and you said it was published with in conjunction with the Minnesota Historical Society?
Correct, yep. And also I want to point out too that I didn't write the book. Adele Porter, a woman from Northfield, Minnesota, who's very talented, extremely talented, wrote the book, and I supplied the photos for it. Yeah.
And if somebody wanted to purchase that, where would they get it, Bill?
Amazon, anywhere online. You could, at most bookstores. I've seen them at most Barnes and Nobles, even this bookstore here in Brainerd, Book World.
Okay. Well, it takes a special kind of person to go out and spend the time that you do, because you don't always go out in just nice weather conditions, do you?
No.
So tell us a little bit about when you decide to do a project, and I think I shouldn't say your primary, but I think the deer are certainly one of the animals that you have the most interest in. How do you go about getting photos of deer that you're looking for?
Okay. Well, it depends on the time of the year. I really get a kick out of photographing deer during the rut. Well, that's when the bucks are at their prime. They're physically, the breeding season is starting. They've eaten all summer. They've put on a layer of fat. They've shed their velvet, and now they're ready for the breeding season, which is in November, late October, you could say, or first half of November. And so a typical day of photographing deer would be to prior to dawn, go out and sit maybe for a while and wait till that initial movement is over, and depending on the weather, it could be anywhere in November, anywhere from 50 above to 10 below zero, And then what I like to do in the middle of the daytime is wander around and rattle, try to call deer in, and people think I'm an extremely patient person for photographing wildlife, but I really like to move around too. I always want to know what's over the next hill. And that rattling, it allows me to move around and yet get good possibilities for deer. And then in the wintertime, like now, I don't do a lot of deer photography. I don't like to disturb them that much. They're struggling the way it is. As you mentioned, this has been a terrible winter for, humans, for animals too, and deep snow and cold is a bad combination. So I don't do a ton of photography now. And then I like to photograph in the late summer when the bucks have their antlers in velvet and they're starting to feel their oats a little bit. And so then, rather than cold, it's the heat and the bugs that are 85 degrees in a blind,
mosquitoes all over,
everywhere,
deer flies,
and then the worst, deer ticks. That's the most dangerous thing in the woods right now.
You and I were talking earlier that the last few years we've seen a big drop in the deer herd. Mm-hmm. And you're a hunter and I'm a hunter. But it doesn't just affect deer hunters, it affects people doing photography too, doesn't it?
And I'm not sure that a lot of people understand that. Taxidermists, butchers, resort owners, hotel owners, gas stations. Yeah, hunting and fishing industry is huge in this state, and people don't really think about that. I'm really surprised that that our deer herd has been allowed to get as low as it is because people are giving up the sport. And not only are they giving it up, but like you mentioned, there's a lot of people whose income has suffered because of the deer herd being down. And
when you go out to take pictures, you're running into the same things that we do
exact
with
same
a hunter.
thing.
You can't find them.
Exactly.
You don't see them.
Yep. I had a mediocre year this year, just like most deer hunters did. I had mediocre year hunting, first of all, but I had a mediocre year photographing this year too, because there just isn't that many subjects out there right now.
And you've got a plot of land that you live on, and you also, because I've read a number of your articles, you spend a lot of time developing that land to aid wildlife, don't you?
Yes,
what are some of the projects that you do on your own property?
I've got 70 acres south of Brainerd, and I've had 5 wildlife ponds excavated, and that's turned out beyond my belief. I've planted wild rice and wild celery and sago and a variety of plant species that attract waterfowl and other water birds into my ponds. One of the ponds is 2 acres. These aren't just little tiny dugouts, you know. These, I believe the guy that dug the one pond said 60,000 cubic yards of dirt came out of that one pond. So, and then once the wetland excavation was completed, and then I kind of switched gears to managing for deer and other wildlife, and I have 13 food plots. Sometimes I let a few go each year, but and then I planted thousands and thousands of trees, both fruit-bearing and nut-bearing trees and conifers for cover. And it's hard to describe the gratification that you get when, you know, wildlife responds to that kind of work.
And I know I've read in some of your articles in the Star Tribune, you talk about how you do that for people who might be interested in doing it on their own property.
Right.
And you do some consulting work in this area too,
yes,
do you
do.
not?
Yep.
So people were interested in having someone help them lay out land for wildlife. That's something that you do also.
Correct.
In addition to taking pictures.
Yep.
I know we have a group of pictures that we'd like to look at. Should we just put some up on the screen? You want to talk a little bit about some of them?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yep.
Well, that's a beautiful wood duck.
Obviously, male wood duck in flight, and I don't know if you noticed the angle of a bird that has iridescence is like a wood duck is so important, and that bird was flying at the perfect angle, and that's something a lot of lay people don't think about, you know, that the angle has to be just right for that iridescence to show, and 1 or 2 degrees off, and it's a totally different bird.
Wow.
Right? Yep.
And we saw a pretty nice buck there.
Yeah.
What's the story behind that?
Yeah, I rattled him in, and if you noticed, his hair was standing on end. They do that to try to make themselves look bigger, and you can almost always say that if that happens, there's another buck close by. And so, like, if I had seen that picture, if you showed me that picture, I'd say, oh, how big was the other buck? And you might go, well, how did you know there was another buck? That's what they do, and it's always the dominant one that inflates itself. And I mean, his antlers were big, his body was big, he was just a beautiful deer. One thing you've noticed that old deer get jowls like
kind of like an old guy like me.
Like people, you know, and that's a sign of that usually they're at least 5.5 years old when they start to get jowls underneath. And yeah, he was a real specimen.
Boy, he was, and I get a kick out of, and he's pretty white-faced too.
Yep.
And there's another buck that we're looking at.
Yeah, and that's a rarity for me. It's you know, like I mentioned, I like to photograph, especially during the rut in November, and by then the fall color is gone. So that buck was standing in a beautiful fall color, and I like to say I got lucky to get that image, but luck favors those who are prepared, and I was prepared. I went on a kind of a scouting mission and took the equipment I thought I'd needed in case I came across something, and it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a September day. Normally the deer are completely inactive, and I came over a rise, and this buck is just standing there, and I got that is one of my favorite images because of the fall color and the buck. He's a beautiful buck. He hasn't reached his full potential yet. He's got another month of putting on weight, but he still is a nice specimen, a beautiful deer.
With the deer herd being down the way it is everywhere, apparently we're seeing fewer of those kind of deer, aren't we, right now?
Oh, yeah.
There's not a lot of those
right.
around. Now, you do a lot of bird pictures. We saw scarlet tanagers, and there's a beautiful swan. Swans are making a comeback in our area.
Oh, yeah,
they really are. And I mean, you've got everything from snowshoe rabbits, like I said, scarlet tanagers, cardinals, eagles.
The couple of the bird photos were one was a pine grosbeak eating crab apples, and there's a story behind that. That's a crabapple tree I planted 20 years ago for the birds. So, you know, it's especially gratifying when you get to see that, when you get to take advantage of that. And I can sit in my office and look out the window and say, oh, the birds, you know, came in about 9 o'clock and get set up for the next day or the next time the weather is right. And they don't always come right at 9 o'clock or whatever, but they do have patterns. And so sometimes I'm able to take advantage of it because it's happening right in my backyard. I don't have to sit in the blind all day and hope that something shows up.
Grosbeaks used to be pretty common where I live in Staples. I haven't seen one for 2 years. Are you seeing that same thing?
Well, pine grosbeaks, you know, they haven't seemed to have gone down in numbers like the evening grosbeaks. The pine grosbeaks are the pink ones, and the males are pink and the females are gray. But the evening grosbeaks are the yellow ones, and when I was a kid, they were everywhere in Brainerd in the wintertime. We had them in our yards. You'd find them in the woods while you were hunting. I haven't seen an evening grosbeak in the Brainerd area in about, I'll bet you, 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And they don't really know why. People still see them up north, Duluth and north of there, but I don't know why they don't come down this far anymore.
And we do see more cardinals here than we ever used to see.
When I was a kid, one a year maybe, and now they're fairly common around Brainerd. Yeah.
Now, do you also do bear? Do you do wolves? Do you do some of I know you've got a photo of a red fox that's just absolutely gorgeous.
Well, yeah, that red fox was a real special one for me. I saw its tracks in the fresh snow, and it jumped down on the ice of the Crowing River west of Brainerd, and there's an island out there, and I thought, well, I wonder if it bedded down on that island, and so I used a call, a varmint call. It simulates a dying rabbit, and the fox in its mind thinks this rabbit is being killed maybe by another predator, and it wants to come in and steal it. And I called, and it came running from that island right down the riverbank, and I was tucked into by some downed trees, and it stopped right in the perfect light, and click, click, 2 clicks, and I looked through the viewfinder to refocus and looked up, and it's like 80 yards away, just a red streak going.
But you got a beautiful shot.
It was in like a millisecond after that picture, it was gone.
And it was almost like it brushed its coat.
Yeah,
it was just
not only
shot.
was the lighting was good, but it was a nice specimen of a fox too.
Now, have you taken bear? Have you taken pictures of bear?
Yeah, but not specific. I don't specifically go after them. I just random when I've been out or whatever. Mostly when I'm after deer is when I'll see bears.
Now, I have had a photographer in here who does a lot of wolves, but a lot of them are penned. He shoots them in penned areas in Minnesota, or he goes to Yellowstone.
Right.
And have you chased after wolves in your? Which,
locally I have with very little luck, and that's one of my complaints about timber wolves, is that you never get to see them.
Right.
You see their tracks all the time. You see the damage that they do to deer. Although I don't know if I call that damage. They're just living. They're predators. That's what happens. But I sure wish I'd see them more often. I see them run across the road. Sometimes the best picture I have of one, it has terrible mange, and so even though they're around here, you just don't get to see them very often, especially in the light. good light for photography. Now you might, you hear deer hunters say, well, gee, I see wolves, and yeah, but are they in good light, or is it like a half hour before sunrise when you see one goes through the brush past you?
Not an image you could use.
People don't understand that you need good light. With the time that I'm heading back to the truck after photographing, if I were bow hunting, I would still be in my tree stand legally in my tree, but the light is gone for photography. I might as well leave.
Now, what's your range? How big of a geographic area do you cover?
Mostly the Dakotas, Minnesota, and southern Manitoba.
Oh, you go to both the Dakotas too?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah.
Muleys? You do muleys?
North and South Dakota during migration is a wonderful place to be.
The birds?
Yep. I've seen some stuff there that, the snow geese. At one time there was 1.2 million snow geese at Sand Lake National Wildlife Refuge.
Wow.
1.2 million.
Wow.
And you can't even describe what it's like when they fly up. You can't describe it. It sounds like dynamite going. It literally sounds like this like a earthquake or something. This roar, rumble as they fly up, and it's incredible.
Wow. We're down to our last minute. It's going fast. Have you ever shot moose?
Yeah, and I really enjoyed that when we had a good population in the Northwest, and that's what I would go up there and call them like I do deer. And they rut a little bit earlier. They rut in late September, and to call in a big moose with a 60-inch antlers and drool hanging out of his mouth and swinging his head back and forth. My hands have been shaking pretty bad.
Well, if people want to get your images, they can go to billmarchel.com, right?
Correct.
Marchel.
Yes.
And the book, again, they can find the book at Amazon.com or through the other places that sell books.
Yeah.
And if they want to contact you about consulting with wildlife management or any of that sort of thing, they can go off your website and get your phone number or your email off that.
Yep.
And you can be you do a weekly column yet for the Brainerd Dispatch, I believe, and for the Minneapolis Star Tribune.
Monthly for the Brainerd and weekly for the Star Tribune.
All right.
Yep.
Well, Bill, thank you very much for appearing on the show. We really appreciate it. As I said, I've admired your work for a long time.
Thank you, Ray.
And it'll be fun to see what you got in store down the road.
All right. Thanks a lot.
You've been watching Lakeland Currents, where we're talking about what you're talking about. I'm Ray Gildow. So long until next time.